Chicken wings are by far my favorite food of all time. It's the best part of a roasted chicken, and it makes for the best fried chicken as well. It's white meat that cooks like dark meat, and it has the most skin of any part of the chicken per piece. It's delicious, it's amazing. Cover it in a spicy sauce and ooh, I'm in love. I wanted to make a series dedicated to the beauty of the chicken wing. In this first episode, I'll just be focusing on finding the easiest way to get crispy, delicious chicken wings at home. And in the future, I'll show you some amazing sauces to coat them in. Welcome to Wingin' It. I'm glad you're here.
First off, why wings? Wings have been a staple in my life since growing up. Pretty much since childhood, they were a favorite of mine. When we would have cookouts, we would have brisket and grilled wings. In my opinion, wings deserve so much more love than just throwing them in a fryer and tossing them in buffalo sauce. Most buffalo sauces just kind of taste like spiced butter, and the wings themselves end up being flabby and chewy. Wings should be a transcendent experience. Crispy, crunchy skin, flavorful sauce, and tender meat make for a crazy delicious finger food. When you buy wings, you may get the whole wing or you may get them split. The only thing that matters is making sure you get a fair share of flats because they are objectively better than drums. Honestly, buying them split is easier, but I'll show you how to separate each part. Starting with the wing tips, we can take them off by cracking at the joint and slicing through where the bones are split. If you crack it correctly, you should easily be able to find where it's cartilage and not bone. You don't really want to be driving your knife through bone. You can, that will work, but cartilage is much easier to cut through. The wingtips are really good for a nice chicken stock, so freeze them if you're into that. To separate the two main pieces, do the same crack to locate the joint, and slice through that as well. This part may have a little bit more cartilage, so you may have to put a little bit more force into cutting through that, but if you use your hands correctly, it should be really easy to locate where you need to make your cut. That's it, it's pretty simple to break down some chicken wings. For the coatings and testings that I'm going to be doing, the three that stood out the most seem to be potato starch, baking powder, and cornstarch. Potato starch is often used to give Korean and Japanese fried chicken a thin, crunchy coating. Baking powder is known to allow chicken skin to get crispier in the oven, and cornstarch is often mixed with flour to give a delicate crunch in many fried dishes. Flour doesn't really tend to get crunchy in the oven, it can often get gummy, so I left it out for this testing. I'm going to coat 2 wings in each of these coatings, seasoned with a little salt and pepper to keep things simple. I'm also going to leave a few wings uncoated as a control. Now, baking powder operates a little bit differently than both of the starches do, so I'll be using a lot less of it. The issue for me, though, with baking powder is it often requires time in the fridge to create a really crunchy wing, so you need a decent amount of time allotted. For me, wings are much more of a throw them together, focus on the sauce, and make sure they're cooked well kind of food, so I don't want a full day of waiting to have to eat them. With all of these prepped, I've got my control on my left, then the potato starch, then the baking powder, and then the cornstarch. These are going into the oven for 45 minutes at 425 convection, and we'll flip them every 15 minutes. These may need a few more minutes at the end, but I want the meat to be juicy and not overcooked. I was doing great until I spilled the tray and lost one of the potato starch wings. My bad. After 45 minutes, these needed about 5 or so minutes more, and they go to get beautifully crispy. Honestly, it feels like a crime to just be leaving these naked and sauceless. I just want to toss these in a delicious sauce. But the point of today is to just judge the texture, so we'll leave them plain. I'm going to throw it back to myself from the past to give a walkthrough of how they turned out and which one I like the most.
We've got naked potato starch, that's the one that I lost, sorry, baking powder, and then cornstarch. I'll start with the naked ones. The naked one's not going to be what I go with. I can already tell one of these is going to be better. This just tastes like roasted chicken, which is what it is. The skin is crunchy. You can hear a crunch. You can even probably hear it still. However, it's not crisp. The skin itself is chewy, and I don't think that makes for a perfect wing. This reminds me of a poorly fried wing. Potato starch. Let's see. The reason I wanted to try potato starch is that it's a very common ingredient in Korean fried chicken, in Japanese fried chicken, and it gives you a really delicate crisp. And that's what I'm kind of getting here. You can tell there's a starch there, but it doesn't lead to a excess of crunch. It's not heavy in a way that you don't like eating. This is a really good way to go. Okay, baking powder. Let's see, this is a classic. This has gone around for a very long time. Everyone seems to know about baking powder. It does something to the skin itself. I'm not a scientist, and I'm not gonna pretend like I know what it's doing, but it definitely does something to the skin, and it makes it crispy and bubbly in a way that people tend to really like. I have made this in the past before, and I really enjoyed it, but let's see how it stacks up versus all of these other ones. What's interesting about the baking powder, there's a taste to it. This to me tastes close to burnt. You can see it's not. It's kind of like a perfect color. This looks like my dog. This is like Lana colored. What I often see is people use a little bit of baking powder and leave it in the fridge for like a couple hours. And I get that. That seems like it's a good way to go. However, it's a chicken wing. I don't want to wait like multiple hours to eat wings. If I have wings and I can break them down here or just get a package of wings, I want to toss them in a coating and be able to eat them right away. So that's what I tried with these. It's actually kind of the right texture you want it to be. It's a flaky crunch, not like a thick lacquered crunch. The taste is off though. I don't know, this may not be it. I kind of went in expecting it to just be what everybody says, which is that's the way to go. Okay, so this is cornstarch. In my experience, cornstarch, when it's cooked like this, gets pretty gritty. So I'm expecting this to have a bit of grit to it. I don't think this is gonna be the one, but let's see. You never know. Cornstarch is kind of a sleeper hit. It has a similar flaked crunch to the potato starch, and it kind of mirrors how good that was. I really wish I had a second potato starch wing to kind of go back and forth between the two of them. But where I'm landing is that starch is kind of underrated when it comes to baking something. Overall, naked I think is a no. Naked is not what you want in a wing. It tastes very different, it feels very different, and it's not the way to go. Baking powder seems to make a great crunch. If I need to just toss this in a little bit of baking powder before baking it, it doesn't taste right. I think I'm gonna safely move forward with potato starch as my number one. It's crunchy, it's crispy, it's the outside of a wing that I expect, except for it's baked.
So as you can see, all three of these turned out really, really well. There are differences in each of them, but moving forward, I want to stick with potato starch. It's cheap, I constantly have it on hand, it lasts a long time, and it makes a really delicious and crunchy wing. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my channel for tons of other cooking videos. I've been releasing one a week for the last few months, so there's a ton of stuff here. Consider supporting me on Patreon like these amazing people do. Thanks for being here. Cheers.